Picture this. You're in the grocery store doing your best. You're avoiding the obvious junk. You're reading labels like you're studying for boards again. And then you realize something that should make every American do a double take. Some of the ingredients sitting in everyday U.S. foods are restricted or banned in other countries, especially across Europe, because of safety concerns. And I have one question I can't stop asking. Why would this be allowed in a country that calls itself the greatest on the planet? We can build rockets, but we can't afford to build a cleaner ingredient list? Now, to be fair, this isn't just America bad, Europe good. This is about two different philosophies. The EU tends to use the precautionary principle. If there's credible concern, they tighten the rules early. The US often leans toward show us undeniable harm in humans first, and then we act, usually after years of exposure. So today, I'm going to walk you through 10 examples, common grocery and processed foods or food practices where other countries draw a hard line and the US has historically said, we're probably fine. And listen, my goal isn't to scare you into living on air and ice cubes. My goal is to help you see the root issue. Our chronic disease epidemic doesn't come from one villain. It comes from 1,000 tiny allowed decisions. Let's get into it. Number 1, candy and frosting ingredients with titanium dioxide, E171. This is used to make foods look brighter and whiter. Think certain candies, coatings, and frostings. The EU moved to remove it after EFSA concluded it can't be considered safe because genotoxicity couldn't be ruled out. That's science speak for, we can't confidently say it won't damage DNA. Meanwhile, in the US, it can still show up as artificial color. So Europe saw enough smoke to grab the fire extinguisher, and we're still debating whether it's a candle. Number 2, bread made with potassium bromate, aka bromated flour. This is the ingredient that makes bread rise higher and look more uniform. It's been a baker's performance enhancer. But here's the issue. Potassium bromate is classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, abbreviated IARC, as possibly carcinogenic to humans based on animal evidence. A bunch of countries decided the risk wasn't worth it. And yet, in the US, it's not hard to find bromated flour in certain breads and rolls if you're not looking. Let me just say this as your friendly neighborhood doc. If the ingredients list start reading like a chemistry final, I'm suspicious, and I was a chemistry major. Number 3, breads and baked goods using azodicarbonamide, abbreviated ADA. ADA is a dough conditioner and flour whitener. It's one of those ingredients that exists primarily because industrial baking wants dough to behave like a robot. Predictable, consistent, shelf-stable. The EU doesn't authorize ADA as a food additive. The FDA allows it within limits. The controversy comes from what happens during heating. And breakdown products regulators want control. Translation? It's not there for your health. It's there for manufacturing convenience. And the question is, how many convenience chemicals are we stacking daily without thinking about the long-term metabolic consequences? Number 4, packaged baked goods and tortillas that use propylparaben. Propylparaben is a preservative that can act like a weak estrogen mimic in the body. The EU does not approve it for food use. In the US, it's still considered generally recognized as safe by the FDA. Here's my root cause problem. The endocrine system is not a toy. Hormones influence appetite, fat storage, mood, sleep, insulin sensitivity, the whole orchestra. If a compound raises endocrine questions, some countries say, not in food. The US often says, we'll allow it until we can prove a problem. That difference matters. Number 5, dairy produced using recombinant bovine somatotropin, abbreviated RBST. RBST boosts milk production. The EU doesn't allow its marketing and use for that purpose, largely tied to animal welfare concerns like increased mastitis, more antibiotics, and broader ethical issues. The FDA has maintained that milk from treated cows is safe for humans. The big tell is what happened in the market. Many US brands went RBST free because consumers demanded it. So even if you think the direct human risk is uncertain, the upstream system, animal stress, infection risk, antibiotics, becomes part of the health conversation. And that's how root cause medicine works. We don't just look at the final product, we look at the whole chain. Number 6. Pork and sometimes beef or turkey produced using ractopamine. Ractopamine is a feed drug that helps animals build lean mass faster. A large part of the world has banned it, including the EU, and major markets like China have rejected it. The US allows it. I want you to think about what that means. If your product can't be sold in huge parts of the world unless you remove the drug, why is it good enough for American families? That's not a scientific slam dunk by itself, but it's a powerful signal that other regulators aren't comfortable with the margin of uncertainty. Number 7, the chlorine washed chicken issue, an entire processing philosophy. Europe has rejected imports of certain US poultry treated with antimicrobial rinses for decades. Part of the EU argument is not simply chlorine will poison you, but that relying on a chemical rinse can mask poor hygiene upstream. They prefer prevention during raising and processing rather than chemical cleanup at the end. This is actually a perfect metaphor for metabolic health. Are we fixing root causes or are we disinfecting consequences? Because when a system relies on last-minute chemical solution, it's usually because something earlier in the pipeline isn't optimized. Quick pause. If you're getting value from this and want more, what's really in the food breakdowns? From a doctor who's tired of seeing preventable disease, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. It helps this message reach the people who still think a colorful label equals a healthy choice. Number 8, citrus sodas that use brominated vegetable oil, abbreviated BVO. BVO is a stabilizer used to keep flavor oils mixed in certain drinks. It's been banned abroad for a long time. The interesting part, the US didn't fully move until recently. The FDA issued a final rule revoking authorization with compliance timelines that run into 2025. This is one of those moments when you realize the US system is capable of change. It just sometimes moves like it's on a dial-up internet. So if you grew up drinking these beverages, understand this. You weren't crazy for feeling uneasy. The rules are literally changing. Number 9, foods colored with red dye. Number 3, erythricin. This one is big because the FDA made a significant move. Authorization was revoked in 2025 with a phase-out deadline for foods in January 2027. Red 3 has a long, complicated history, and other places had already moved away from it due to tumor findings in animal studies and broader risk concerns. Here's what I want you to notice. It can take decades for a questioned additive to get fully addressed. That's the part people miss. We assume regulation is proactive, but it's reactive. Number 10, hormone-treated beef growth-promoting hormone implants. The EU prohibited hormones for growth promotion in cattle. The US has approved several steroid hormone implants for use in food-producing animals. This isn't about panic. It's about acknowledging a regulatory split. If you're focused on metabolic health, the question becomes, what's the cumulative effect of living in an environment where endocrine active exposures are normalized through food practices, packaging, personal care products, and beyond? You don't need one smoking gun to drive dysfunction. 1,000 tiny nudges in the wrong direction can do it. So what's the takeaway? First, this isn't about perfection. This is about reducing your exposure to things that give your body extra work to do. Extra detox, extra inflammation, extra endocrine signaling noise, when your body already has enough to deal with. Second, the best food policy is still the basics. More whole foods, fewer ultra-processed foods, short ingredient list. If the label looks like it was written by a pharmacist on espresso, put it back. Third, become an ingredient detective. Look for words like bromated, artificial color, propylparaben, and the preservatives that show up in the same types of foods over and over again. Packaged breads, snack cakes, bright cereals, neon drinks, and processed meats. Fourth, vote with your dollars and your voice. Companies reformulate when enough people stop buying the old version, and policy changes when enough people get loud about it. Because again, if we're going to claim we're the greatest, we should be able to feed our citizens without needing other countries to be our conscience. And if you've seen one of these ingredients on something you buy regularly, drop it in the comments. I read them and I use them to decide what label we expose next. I'm here to help you protect your nest. Let's walk towards a more metabolically healthy future together, one policy change at a time. I'm Dr. Tony Hampton, and I'll see you in the next video.